Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing a political reckoning. Mounting pressure from Israel's allies, including the UK, France, Canada, and now, of course, US. Well, Trump is forcing a potentially historic pivot. On Tuesday, Britain, what it did was it suspended trade talks and sanctioned Israeli settler outposts, calling Israel's blockade of aid to Gaza as indefensible. But it's Trump's shift that stings the most, doesn't it? Once Netanyahu's key ally, he now urges an end to the war, marking a seismic shift in the US-Israel dynamics. Netanyahu's far-right allies threaten to bring down the government if more aid flows into Gaza. But international isolation is also growing. With elections looming and negotiations with Hamas faltering, the Prime Minister now stands at a crossroads. Continue a war he may not be able to win, or end it and risk losing power. Listen in.
Let me separately address the question of Gaza, because it is a really serious, unacceptable, intolerable situation.
On Gaza, the humanitarian situation in Gaza is unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. Israel must stop now immediately. The Hamas needs to release immediately all the hostage.
Therefore, today, I'm announcing that we have suspended negotiations with this Israeli government on a new free trade agreement.
ממשלה שאומרת שאפשר להפקיר חטופים וצריך להרעיב ילדים, זו ממשלה שנשמעת כמו דובר חמאס. ממשלה שמדברת על פצצת אטום בעזה היא לא ממשלה יהודית והיא בטח לא ציונית.
One thing is clear, for Netanyahu, the political battlefield may soon be more dangerous than the military one in which he's trying to get more gains. To talk more on this, let me quickly now rope in Ariel Kahana, who's joining me to represent essentially the Israeli side of it. She's joining us from Jerusalem. And there is Omair Anas, who's a Middle East expert. He's joining us from Turkey. Ariel, let me start by getting your view out right now. One can debate the statistics, whether it is 14,000 children or 10,000 children, or whether it's these many number of people who are struggling to get food or that many. But the fact that those visuals, those pictures are there, they're moving people around the world, which is why Israel may be losing a lot of the support that it had at the beginning of this war.
So, war is never pleasant, but unfortunately this war is taking place for now more than a year and a half, because it began with an awful attack, unbelievable, horrible attack by Hamas on our civilians, on our cities, on our villages, slaughtering babies, killing women, pregnant women, raping them, and really unbelievable scenes, which, by the way, were broadcast live on Telegram and other networks. And people who would like to see what happens then can still find it. It's really unbelievable. Israel, the state of Israel, the Jewish people cannot let this organization, Hamas, which is an extreme Islam organization, we just cannot let them stay in that area in Gaza, because as long as they are still there, and by the way, even at this moment, while you and I are talking, I know the Israeli intelligence know they prepare new attacks against our places, our villages, and so on. So we have actually two options. One is to let them stay and let them make the next attack.
Okay.
I think, and the other one is to defeat them. Now it's a war. It's very hard. And by the way, they can surrender now, give back our 59 hostages they still hold after a year and a half, and the war will end.
I do not.
No other options, two different options.
I do not dispute anything that you said. It did start with Hamas. It did see 3-month-old babies being put in oven and being killed like that, burnt to death, and 59 Israeli hostages are still with Hamas. I'm not disputing any of that. And that is something that the world backs Israel on completely. But the fact is, where do you draw the line?
That's still the case. That's it.
No, where do you draw this is about aid, sir. This is about aid. And that's why I want to, ask the other side, which is to get Omair on this, that the fundamental issue, Omair, is that what the Israelis feel, that if they allow any reprieve, it will just mean that Hamas will regroup and come back and attack. That's the sum and substance of their argument. How do you give comfort to Israel that while this war may be going on, aid has to flow in? And where do you find that distinction?
Look, I think that this war is no longer at this stage is no longer about Hamas. It is, if we see the strategy which Netanyahu is following, he is not trying to destroy Hamas. And by the way, let me also remind our friend here is that it is Israel who had supported Hamas in 1980s against PLO.
First of all,
Hamas-
Mr. Anas, I have a request, and that request is to both of you. You want to go back in time, we can go back all the way. But that doesn't solve the problem, right? Because you and I are sitting in studios and sitting in comfortable rooms. There are 59 Israeli hostages who haven't seen daylight in almost 19 months. And there are these children in Gaza who are facing starvation. Let's be very clear. Let's not go back in time. Let's now talk about trying to find some sort of a solution, and also in the wake of the diplomatic isolation that Israel is facing. Yes, Mr. Anas, I want to understand from you that are there any options left on the table to solve this?
To be very honest, the only option is left is that Netanyahu must declare a ceasefire, even unilaterally, because the international opinion and most of the European countries, they are now convinced that this war is no longer about Hamas. Israel has achieved everything against Hamas. Israel has already killed the maximum number of leadership, the top leadership, even a large number of their soldiers as well. Now it is the civilians who are being victimized and who are suffering at this time. So I think that this is the main problem. Why is Netanyahu is not declaring a ceasefire? Why he is not agreeing to a ceasefire? He has political compulsions. He has domestic challenges. So he is using this war for his survival.
And let me put that out. I want to play some of those graphics again, which talk about what could be the next options as far as the Israeli Prime Minister is concerned. The fact that his government could in fact fall because the far right want this to continue. The fact that US will or may withdraw support, leaving Israel completely isolated. The fact that there was a big Middle East tour which did not include Israel. Those limit the options, Ariel, doesn't it, for Mr. Netanyahu?
So it's not about political interest here inside Israel, and it's not about, God forbid, it's not about civilians in Gaza, not at all. By the way, the one who are torturing, even in these days, the civilians in Gaza are Hamas, are the Hamas people. I don't know if you know, but every day there are a lot of, you can see it on the social media, but also in the streets in Gaza, people demonstrating against Hamas. People in Gaza are calling Hamas to stop the war, because Hamas is the one to use civilians. He's using Palestinian civilians to kill Israeli civilians. That's the way this horrible organization is working. Now, every person in the world who doesn't want the extremism to win, who doesn't want terror to win, who doesn't want horrible actions, as we saw in the beginning on the first day of this war happening, should join and support Israel with this war. Just you showed the British Prime Minister. It's just as if we will say to Churchill, in Second World War, know what, Mr. Churchill, stop in the middle of the way. No, this war will be end at one point when we will get back our people, and when Hamas will be defeated. We have just no other choice.
So which brings me to ask this question to Omair, which is that you essentially that's I wouldn't say that that's the voice of the government, but it represents the large part of the Israeli opinion, which is that you've got to give us our hostages, this war will end. Why is Hamas not ending this war by giving those hostages? Because if Mr. Netanyahu is willing to go ahead, even when he faces global censure, it means that the international community can only do so much as well. It's got to be those hostages.
In previously all negotiations, what we know is that Hamas had completely agreed to surrender all of the hostages in stage by stage in return of different compromises, and Israeli side had also offered these kind of compromises. So I think that in principle, Hamas had already declared that they are completely ready to provide all sorts of concessions. So there is no dispute about the fact that Hamas is ready to give back all the hostages. Now the issue is whether Netanyahu is willing to stop the war. Now the ball is in the court of Netanyahu. He is not agreeing. And by the way, if you see what is happening in Europe and how the European countries are now evaluating the situation, and especially if you see President Trump, he is feeling like betrayed by Netanyahu because he had put so much energy to convince Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates and other countries for Abraham Accord. President Trump is seeing as if his entire vision of Abraham Accord is being defeated by Netanyahu. He is blocking. He is the only person who is blocking the Abraham Accord. And he is the person who has stopped the Saudi-Israeli normalization.
I'm sorry, but all that is just ridiculous. Netanyahu and Trump, and I was there personally. There's one who made the Abraham Accord. There's one who wants now to go on with the Abraham Accord. But all the countries of the Abraham Accord, including the UAE and Bahrain and many other Arab countries, all of them, and by the way, Western countries as well, all of them support, and of course the US, all of them support the Israeli goal to eliminate Hamas.
No.
This region cannot survive as long as Hamas is still here. That's the point.
I don't think that distinction has clearly emerged as clearly in the Israeli political leadership as it should, that the war against Hamas and the battle against the people of Gaza, particularly the children, as I said, are two different things. I'm going to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on India Global. Well, at the end of the day, bottom line, viewers, is that for Benjamin Netanyahu, there is a lot that's riding, everything from political survival to the survival of the 59 hostages that continue to remain in Hamas's captivity after 19 months of when the war started. But with limited or maybe very few diplomatic options really on the table, will he be forced to come out with some sort of a ceasefire? Or will he try and play Trump administration just like President Putin has been able to do so for several months? Well, no one has the answer, but limited time is available, at least for the people of Gaza who need food, and they need it now.